Hello, this is Chris from Merseyside Metal Madness. I'm here at the O2 Academy in Liverpool, and it's my great pleasure to be talking to none other than Mr. Brian Tatler from Diamond Head. Hello, Brian.
Hello, Chris. How are you doing?
I am wonderful, thank you. Thank you so much for talking to me. All right, so first question, sort of jump in. I suppose the first question I want to ask would be, what does it feel like to sort of to be regarded by so many people as, like an important, influential band, and to have, songs that you've written regarded as rock and metal classics? What does that feel like?
It's great. It's very flattering, and I always think it's much better to be influential than just be some band that came and went. I mean, I always think influential bands are an important part of the stepping stone of some of the bigger bands. It's just that not everybody gets together enough to sell millions of records, do they? Through be it management or the wrong label or the timing or a band splitting up. But those bands are just as important in a way. I mean, people cite Joy Division as a huge influence, and I think they've become kind of legendary, even though they weren't a particularly big band back in the day. But they, everybody knows of them through their influence on all these other bands, and so it's a cool thing. I'm very proud of our influence.
Did you ever, when you were in the early days, when you're starting out with Diamond Head, did you ever, when you were writing then, playing, did you ever have the sense that the songs you were playing, that there was anything, special about the stuff you were playing? No,
not really. All we were trying to do is write good songs and perform as well as possible. So we would add new songs to the set, and we'd be confident about them. But if they didn't work live, we used to chuck them out the set. Really, that was our way, as we called it, road testing the material. That if the crowd didn't like it, then it wouldn't last very long. I think it's a good way of trying the material out. Really, test it. We soon found that slow songs kind of went down badly, and fast songs went down well. So I think that's partly where our, thirst for tempo kept heading.
Brilliant. And I mean, well, you've been, playing in bands, involved in the music industry for so many years now. From your perspective, how has the experience of, being in a band and being a professional musician, how has that changed since you started out?
I don't know, because when I started, of course, I was just like, 17, 18, 19-year-old kid, and I'm older now, and so I don't know how it's changed really. You've got to be a young kid trying to make it, really. I'm not that young kid trying to make it anymore. I've achieved a certain level of success, and we've made albums, we've done tours and stuff, so we achieved some way up the ladder. You aim high. We always wanted to be as big as Led Zeppelin. You do, I think. You've got this kind of naive confidence that you can rule the world. But slowly but surely, a lot of that can get bashed out of you over the years with when you start realising how difficult it is. But I don't really know. I couldn't put myself in their shoes. Like, but there's an opening band tonight who are probably just young guys, and I don't know quite kind of what they're thinking. I would imagine they're thinking, we'd like to be as big as Metallica, so we will keep pushing and pushing until we get there, really. And they may never get there. Somebody's got to get there, one of 100,000 other bands. But it is an incredibly tough market to get yourself into. But you've got to try, haven't you? As the saying goes, if you don't in it to win it, you've got to try. But you do have to get all these factors in line before it'll happen. You have to have the right people around you. You have good people. So unless you've got a lot of support, it's going to get tough.
Well, sort of leading in from that, we were talking. You're talking there about younger generation of bands. What are there any particular sort of younger bands that you're a fan of or that stand out to you?
I can't think of any young bands now. I mean, there's newish bands I like. I quite like that band Rival Sons, just because he's got a great voice. I'm always been a big fan of great rock singers. So I'm more looking for, good songs, good singers, a good sound. I'm not a big fan of the death metals and that kind of vocals. I mean, it's impressive when bands like Gojira. It's impressive, but I've got to be in the right mood for that. Really, I sometimes you put it on, you think, bloody hell, it's amazing. But and other times, I don't. I'm not in the right mood for it, I suppose as you get older, I always think it's not aimed at me. It's demographic. It's probably aimed at young lads, like I was once. When I'd go and watch, say, Judas Priest at Birmingham Odeon, and I'd think I'd like to do that. I'd want to be on that stage, and I suppose when young kids now come and watch the bands that they like, Avenged Sevenfold or whatever, then they just think the same. They look up at that stage and think, I want to do that, I want to be on that stage with that guitar, playing that riff, and you kind of, you dare to dream, and you've just got to work at it. And it requires a hell of a lot of work. You practice. I mean, practice your guitar till you can't practice no more. Because I always think if you don't practice, the guy up the road will. There's millions and millions of guitarists, and unless you got something, you've got some way of writing or a style or something that makes you a bit unique, you probably just drift into obscurity.
Well, talking about guitar there and practicing. Now, as a guitarist, which guitarists were the biggest influence on you, on your style, on your playing, and just on, encouraging you to get more involved? Okay,
I think the first one would be Richie Blackmore. Highway Star was always something that I wanted to emulate. So the solo in that, is probably one of the reasons I started playing. I've got an older brother called David, 6 years older. He played in a band, so he let me have a go on his guitar, and he would show me things. I'd say, how'd you play this, how'd you play that? So that was an important influence on me. And then listening to people like Michael Schenker, Van Halen, and Jimmy Page, and Paul Kossoff, and I'd study their records, and I'd even slow things down and try and copy the licks and work out bit by bit. I think I listened to a lot of different stuff when I was growing up. There was a lot of music in the house, and my brother had all these records, and my sister had records, and I'd borrow records off friends, and I'd tape records and listen to the radio, John Peel and whatever. And so I think I absorbed a lot of different types of not just, say, rock, for example. I'd listen to all sorts of stuff. And I think it all bled into what became Diamond Head's sound. The varied influences. It wasn't, I think if all four of us would have, say, liked AC/DC, then we'd have sounded a bit like AC/DC. I don't see how you couldn't. But because we all like, AC/DC amongst hundreds of other things, then it makes it more original somehow. We came up with a bit of a hybrid.
Now, obviously, talking great guitarists, you are here on joint headline tour with the great Uli Jon Roth.
Yeah, he's great.
Now, how did that partnership, whatever you want to call it, how did that come about?
I think it's because Uli does a lot of work in the UK as he lives over here now, and we've got an agent in America who seems to represent Uli and Diamond Head, so it was just a matter of, do you want to tour with Uli, and does Uli want to tour with Diamond Head? So yeah, why not? Go for it. Because most of Uli's band are from the Midlands, and we're a Midlands band.
Home of metal, isn't it?
Indeed. So I think it was just a convenience, really, and with both sides being up for the occasion.
Fantastic. Now, okay, so obviously it's not something I want to dwell on hugely, but it's kind of one of the things you kind of have to ask about.
I know it's coming.
Yeah. Now, in so many people's minds, there's always this, the M word. There's always this really strong association between Diamond Head and Metallica. Now, I don't know, especially recently with 30th anniversary and whatnot. Now, I don't want to, ask you to tell the story about Lars coming to stay or anything like that. Everyone's heard that, but just from your perspective, how much and in what way has that association changed things and affected things for Diamond Head?
Hugely. I don't think we'd be here having this conversation without Lars Ulrich getting into Diamond Head, and then Metallica covering Diamond Head and keeping the name alive through hundreds of press interviews, raving about Diamond Head being one of their main influences. Then it gave us a second shot at the cherry, really, because the band had split in '85, and we were kind of resurrected in 1990 because of Metallica really becoming so huge, and it just seemed daft not to, really. And although we split again and then reformed, we've kind of been focusing a little bit on the material they covered, and playing to the kind of audiences that like Metallica in a way. So I would imagine a lot of the gigs we get have been because people associate us with a little bit with Metallica, and we're not as heavy as Metallica. We're not that kind of band, really. We've come up with great riffs, and we were powerful, but I think Metallica took it much further, and then of course other bands like Slipknot took it further still. So I don't think we're that similar to a band like, say, Slipknot or Trivium, but somehow we seem to get lumped in a little bit with all this metal madness, and I'm fine with it because metal's so huge and so worldwide. Why not get on board, really? It's better than being sort of in a minority little genre that nobody cares about. It's better to be in a sort of style where you can sell millions of records if you're so lucky.
So do you ever sort of, kind of silly to ask now, I've just asked about it, but do you ever get just a little bit tired, despite the fact that, it's helped you a lot, do you ever get, a little bit tired of people constantly wanting to ask you about Metallica?
No, because at least they're interested, they want to know. They could quite easily ignore the band and go and listen to somebody else. But now I think Metallica have earned their place. They've worked incredibly hard to stay there, to get there and then stay there. And I don't mind talking about, the small place we played in Metallica's, career. I'm completely flattered that a guy I, met was a big fan and became a huge band. I watched him go from A to B, and that don't happen very often. Everybody's got mates who play in a band, but usually that's all they do, and they might do a few gigs and they might make a record, but you don't expect them to become the biggest metal band of all time, do you? And conquer the world. And I saw that happen with this kid called Lars, who was 17 and didn't even play the drums, I don't think, when I met him. So I've a little bit of pride there that I was part of that.
Brilliant. That's a fantastic attitude. Now, okay. Now, a bigger sort of broader question. We've been talking about various people in the interview. Out of all the many people you've met during your career in music, could you say there is one person who has impressed you the most?
Jimmy Page is the man for me. I mean, there's so many great songs that Page has given to the world. So, yeah, definitely Jimmy Page. I'm a big Zeppelin fan. Zeppelin are my favourite band, and as an all-rounder, Jimmy Page is one of my favourite guitarists because he's a good lead player. He's very creative. He writes incredible songs, brilliant riffs, and he was a producer as well. He produced all the Zeppelin albums on his own. And they all sound absolutely fantastic, even now, 40 years on, some of them albums, and they still sound great. So I've got nothing but respect for Jimmy Page.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right. Sort of last question now, wrapping things up. It's been about 6 years now since you guys released your last album, What's in Your Head. Now, is there a follow-up in the pipeline at all?
Not really. There's some songs that we've been messing with, but it's just a bit too difficult having people living abroad. It's not like everybody's great at Pro Tools and you can send files to each other. That's not the case. So we only really come together now to tour, because it's too expensive to get people in just to rehearse or to write, because the sort of sales we do are only small, and the amount of work it takes, like it probably takes a year to write and record an album, and none of us really can justify spending that kind of time on an album that's going to sell 3,000 copies. So I'm not particularly motivated to put that much effort into it, especially when I've been doing it for 33 years.
So, last question then, after this, bearing that in mind, after this tour with Uli's finished, because I know you're doing the UK and then you're going to Canada and whatnot.
We're off to America, yeah.
What are your plans for the future then? Have you got
just more of the same? I'd have thought. We seem to enjoy touring, and we're always looking for new territories if we can. We've been to Japan and Canada. I've never been to Canada before, so this time we're doing the West Coast. Last time we did the East Coast. So I'm still getting to play places that I've never played. Even on this tour, I've never been to Vancouver. I've never been to Texas. I've never been to Reno. Blah blah blah. So I think there's a bit of challenge still there, and a bit of quite enjoy the idea of going somewhere different. I don't think I'd like just keep going around the UK, because I have been doing that a long time. But it's nice when you get offered, foreign places. We get offered all sorts. We've been offered, Brazil and Australia and India and all sorts. But very often they don't pan out. Either it's a problem with money or promoters or airfares, or there's just so many. It's so detailed to try and put together a tour, and complicated that we work on it, but sometimes it doesn't always come off. And but we do enjoy the live side more than the studio side. I think it's partly money as well. I think everybody needs to keep working to pay bills and stuff. So the idea of giving up so much time to make a record for peanuts is not very attractive to us.
Fair enough. Brian, thank you so much for talking to me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
You're welcome.
Right, this is Chris from Merseyside Metal Madness. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye.